Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anarata Bashalieva, along with co-hosts Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Shrey. We host weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any questions for our guest. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Professor Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким покліном. Ми далі свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Thank you. And today's guest will be introduced by Professor Victor Fett. The rest of us turn off your camera. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anara. I'm very glad to welcome back our regular contributor from Brooklyn, New York. Galina Itskovich is a clinical social worker, developmental psychotherapist, lectures on subjects of trauma and child development, director at the Refugee Support Project, and she is also a great poet. Galina returns to MUkraine today and will talk to us upon the topic of chronic stress and associated burnout that becomes a marker of the second year of this terrible war. And Galina, please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Victor. I'm not happy to be back. I wish we could all meet one day and celebrate the end of this war, and that would make me really happy. But I'm immensely grateful to you and to the university, to all the organizers and people who relentlessly come back and continue with this program. I think it's extremely important to set up this expectation that we will go on, and a part of me is saying no, it needs to end, but another part is saying this is so great. And I think that would be the topic, the psychotherapeutic part of what I have to say, because we are dealing with the burnout. We are dealing with people who started off very enthusiastically and then they can no longer go on for many, many reasons. And I see these people sometimes in therapy, and sometimes I run into them via my supervisory meetings with other professionals who work with such people. And also I witness how volunteers, people who were so great and so helpful and so selfless in the beginning, just cannot go on because of what we've been witnessing, because of what we've been experiencing, because of all this burden that we take on. And I want to repeat, and I'm using every possibility to say it over and over again, feel free to ask for help on the day when you feel that you no longer feel for these people, or that you feel for these people so much that you cannot sleep, or that you are so tired that you need to drink in order to turn off this incessant thought. This is the day to say, I need help. It's very important to disseminate this message. It's very important to repeat it over and over again. Help is available. Psychotherapy is available. Therapists are there. Therapists also go through their own stages, but our profession is designed in the way that we receive regular supervision, that we receive clinical support. Many of us are in therapy themselves, and you need to trust the therapists know how to take care of themselves, and they will be there for any of you who needs support. And traumatization happens without us fully realizing. Traumatization happens from listening to first-hand accounts, from reading, from witnessing, from anxiety that we experience on a regular basis when we open up Messenger or a chat or some other social media where people would reach out to tell us how terrible, look what's happening to me right now, or that was a near miss. And it happens more and more to civilians in Ukraine, not only to people on the front lines, but more and more relentlessly to civilians, to people that we know. So feel free to tell them the help is out there. And Ukrainian professionals are growing exponentially, I feel. They continue to use everything that's at their disposal in terms of their own clinical growth. They continue to learn as they go, and they've been doing it since 2014. And also there is an international group that's always ready to come and help and support. As a part, I told you about some of my projects in the past. They mostly continue. But also there is a new project that New York Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Studies Center that I'm affiliated with took on. It's called Hidden Wounds. It's about people who were silent up until now, people who've suffered in the first days and weeks and months of this war, and only now they're ready to talk about what happened to them. Based on research, and the statistical evidence shows that people who, for example, suffered sexual assault come for help in 8 years. It's going to be 2 years soon. But these people are trickling in. And our project hopefully will grow and continue. It will consist of a series of psychoeducational videos that are based on eyewitness, first-hand reports of people who suffered violence, of people who went through occupation, of people who had war trauma, direct and indirect, people who witnessed atrocities. And the therapeutic comment. So it's twofold. It's helping people who came for help, but also it's helping those who are not ready to ask for help. And these videos, the project is called Healing Hidden Wounds. It will be available in Ukraine and in the United States. Internationally, I guess we work in close conjunction with Kyiv Police. We also work in close collaboration with Mitzi Perdue, who's the international war correspondent, official war correspondent. She's the one who kind of spearheaded this project. And this is the latest development. And these people come to help slowly but surely. But as for our project that I mentioned in the past when I was here, I mentioned on the move project groups for parents of kids with various developmental disabilities, atypical kids, neurodiverse kids. These groups continue. I wouldn't say they grow, but they're solid. It's the work phase. And our therapists continue to work with them, not only psychotherapists, but also multi-modal therapists, from art therapy to mobility therapists like occupational physical therapists, to speech therapists, all sorts of therapists who support. Right now we have 3 working very active groups. One is comprised of people who are all over Ukraine and the world, essentially, at this point. Another one is for people who are in the war zone. And the third one is for people who have been deoccupied. They survived occupation. Some people came back because they fled the occupation, and now they're trying to patch up their lives, their relationships, their friendships together. But also we had this long-running Kiev group. And the Kiev group, I sometimes even forget about this group. And it goes on and on and on. It's not as closely supervised. It has their own supervisors, not right now in Ukraine. But then I realized that they're doing this great work in their art therapy sessions, producing illustrations for various tales and children's books. And they showed me a completed project, Mucha. This is Kornei Chukovsky book. Kornei Chukovsky is the Russian-speaking poet of Ukrainian and Jewish origin, and this is important because otherwise they would not publish his book, I guess, in Ukraine. But most importantly, one of the kind of public personalities right now in Ukraine, Dr. Komarovsky, has his own YouTube channel, and he started this whole illustration project. But they were late. So the pictures that kids drew were not accepted. And they took a very different set of illustrations for the YouTube project. I said, wait a second, we need to put it together. It will be a book. And they sent me all the illustrations, and they sent me the translation. When I looked at the translation, I was shocked because it wasn't a real translation into Ukrainian. It was this fake pseudo-Ukrainian that was a part of this kind of colonization mentality, when you wouldn't want people to learn the language of the land that they live in, but they would want them to speak Russian, learn Russian, think Russian. And it's very easy to do it with, let's say, Belarusian or Ukrainian that are seemingly so close. And I'm sure that it's being done to Uzbek and Kazakh and other languages as well. But for Ukrainian, it just like right on the surface, it doesn't make sense to work hard. It's just Russian to Ukrainian. That was one of those translations that seemed to be so easy. So I sat down, I just couldn't look at it. Being a translator at heart, I had to sit down and translate it. And then another colleague, Ilya Lipis, looked at it, and he said, well, there are too many direct kind of transliterations from Russian. And he cleaned up the whole bunch. And then I looked at it again. I said, wow, I see more. It's like the third eye that's opening, and you see suddenly, yes, this is a very different language. It needs to be respected. So I worked and worked and worked, and I arrived to the translation that was more or less okay. But in the meantime, the YouTube project, the new YouTube project, they were accepted. But the book was already in the making. And I thought that this is just such a great way to show the world what we're doing. This book comes with a, show you the book, with the illustration of the neurodiverse kids and their siblings and the therapists who were also scared and anxious, and they used art therapy to help them calm down, regroup, resurface. I don't know how well you can see some of the illustrations. So that's the whole book with the introduction from the director of Kiev Floor Time Center that I used to supervise, and now they're fully independent on their own, and they're great. And little testimonials from people who participated in the project, and it's a great way for us to remember how we spent the first year of this war. I would hate to think that there will be more, but there will be more. Of course, we continue to work, we continue to look for some creative output, we continue to process what happens. And if you remember from last time, but I will remind you that last time I read excerpts from my diary, we call it that, that was published in Asymptote. And I continued to work on that. I put it together. It's all ready. It exists in the shape of manuscript. Right now, looking for publisher. And this is basically my experiences volunteering, trying to organize help, trying to involve other people, resources, invent resources from scratch, from the first 270 days of war. And I stopped there, and it was not easy to stop, because the war continues, because we continue to work, but we are getting to the point when we keep doing more of the same. And this is a part of this adaptation, that we don't stop, and so many other volunteers don't stop. We do more of the same. We continue with the groups. So right now we're low on funds, but we will continue to scramble, to invent, to look for funds, to find funds. I know that something will come out, and every time I speak somewhere, something comes our way to support our groups, because we do pay therapists who are right now in Ukraine. It's not easy for them. It's hard to work and continue to be available and balanced and supportive to people there. As a respect to them, the small token of our appreciation, we pay them. So yes, we collect funds for that. Also, we collect funds for the other part of the program, Ball of Hope. And I know that some people who are present here have been helpful. We continue with that. We send diet foods to Ukraine. We continue doing more of the same. And sometimes it's very hard to get up in the morning and to do more of the same. But that's the only way to overcome this burnout, to overcome this sense of not getting far. We are getting far just by making one step at a time. So I don't know if I explained why I stopped at 270 days, but I tried. So anyway, now I have this manuscript that's absolutely ready, looking for publisher. If you have any pointers, I'll be more than happy to follow them. And at some point, I spoke to the person who was encouraging me, instrumental in this book being translated into English, because it started in Russian. And she said, why don't you put in poems? And so we put in 13 poems that were written at this time. And then I added one more. I would like to read this poem to you. This is the poem that's been translated by Robert Chandler, who is a distinguished translator. He is a British poet. he is an authority on translation from Slavic languages. So I was, to me,
I think we had someone with turned microphone.
oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure what
Can
happened.
you hear me?
We can hear you now, not very well.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Everything's good?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, yes. So I'm about to read the translation of Robert Chandler, who is a British poet and translator, authority on translation from Slavic languages. I'm honored to have my work translated by him. And this is the poem about volunteering. Ferrying. I say to the dream readers, day and night in my dreams, I do what I can to ferry to some safe haven a cabbage, a goat, and a wolf. Not on a computer screen, not from a therapist armchair, but through a blank bulk of water in a rocky boat and almost drowning. The fate of this threesome depends on me, but why do I take this on? Wrong time to be asking. 3 guesses as to how blithely I'll spring through April and May with February's terrors etched eternally on my body, beyond all limits. 2 eaters, 2 eatables, a complex maneuver. My frail refugees now stir in the dark. A cabbage, a goat, and a wolf, with neither house nor home, neither needle nor pin, nor stitch of clothing. I snatch a thistle for the goat, a tranquilizer for the wolf, a handful of earth for the cabbage, and push off from the shore into the river's maw, but it's a lost cause. Wolf goes for goat's withers, a goat eye drills through us. Hysteric cabbage is wringing her leaves. I head for the main channel, my reflexes well trained. I tried to get online, but the power lines are down. The receivers burned out. Too damn late. Heavy going round the island. We battle through heavy water. Wolf snatches a quick bite, and goat howls at the sight of the craze in his hungry eyes. All hopeless and haywire. No way to get anywhere. I dump Wolf back on shore and push off once more, cabbage and goat in my arc. Must get across. But while I fight with the wave, goat all but beheads cabbage, who lets out a lupine howl. And I push off again to the wail of sirens. No shelter on a shell-lit river. No concrete, no walls, and me paler than a shell-struck night, toothpick frail, a fine life and soul sable, a poor student only too sure to fail. I'm back on the shore where I dumped the wolf. I keep trying to forget, which breaks my heart, and what good is that? All 3 in one crossing? At war? As at fucking war? But that cynicism, a wolf voice within me, born out of burnout. Now I think I can see him, hunkered down in a trench over there to the right. I put goat out on shore. She bleeds and blasphemes. Every minute counts. Come back for her quick. I hear wailing and keening rockets zip through the sky. I grab a lupine paw. He backs off in a panic. If he'd only get lost, or there was space in the zoo. No salvation for anyone. No connection mid-river. I hear blasts from the siren, moans from the moon. Inside my cupped hand, I've delivered two to the right bank, left the goat on the left bank, but let her take care of herself. No, I can't keep away. Here on this left bank of fear, the post-traumatized goat heaps curses on every lupine tribe, wrings her extremities, turns fearfully personal, and move all to human goats no longer herself, home crushed by bombs and refugee kids burned alive on previous crossings. Just me and the goat. I try to wake up, but I can't. Pole and oar are equally useless. Kharkiv's three rivers are hard to cross. One is even called Lopan, which sounds like to burst, rhyming with cursed. And while I cross this river of hell, my ferry, my ark, my raft drifts away. I leap up like a goat, torn by reflexes beyond my control, and the wolf of my fury bites into goat flesh, and that cabbage leaves rot from terror, and a stranger's sweat-drenched shirt clings to me even closer. The wolves of my emotions, my heart's cabbage head, my goatsy good sense, keep at it, while something resembling a head remains on my shoulders. We endure more than an hour, more than two, then reach land. A warrior armed with hoofs and horns, and yours truly, psychotherapist and self-styled sorcerer from the blackest of seas. No salvation for this Slav nation. Bows, cheers, and the curtain falls. But then it's back to square one. Two eaters, two eatables, wolf, goat, and cabbage. Intricate chess gambits, guts all in a twist. Caring for others is like cupping my hands round the flame, but it's once again into the hell of a stranger's grief. I'm no firewoman, no fairy woman, only a faraway one with stories to tell to generations to come if I stay in one piece. So it's really important for me to stay in one piece, to be available, to do my work, to continue the ferrying, continue to delivering people to where they need to be. In the last, since I last was here, I also participated in two conferences. One in Batumi, a conference on play, where I talked about the Ukrainian children that I work with offline, in person here. Children who are dealing with post-traumatic issues, severe attachment issues, and their parents who are dealing in parallel, who are dealing with severe trauma and trying to resume the old roles and old power dynamics in their families, even though their families are now really changed. And then I had another conference, which is the international conference of the institute where I'm teaching, ICDL. And I talked more about the same two cases that seem to progress and what we can learn from those cases, what we can learn from this phase where some issues become chronic. We move away from the war, but war continues to go on within us, within our psyche, within our personal histories, and we are shaping the family narratives of the mid 21st century. People will talk about their experiences. People will talk about this trauma and reprocess this trauma. It already happened World War I, so many other local, not so small, but fairly local wars. World War II. We are still dealing with people who are children of the survivors. Just earlier this week, I spoke to somebody whose father is almost 100 years old. Both parents were concentration camp survivors. And we talked about things that have come out, about the witness accounts, whatever was recently written. And he said, I cannot read about it anymore. I lived it my entire life. This is somebody who's almost 70. This is an issue that does not go away. It's not an issue. It's the way of thinking. War, trauma, war atrocities leave deep, deep imprint on our minds. We are not designed for that. Our nervous systems were designed to survive in the wilderness. They were not designed to deal with the human cruelty. And humans are capable of things that wouldn't come to anyone's mind, any animal. And they would not even come close, or rather, natural disasters probably would not even come close to what humans can devise for other humans. So that's probably why we need talk therapy, we need body-based therapists, we need all sorts of social supports. And somebody else brought to my attention that the psychotherapy was initially devised as the kind of three-directional cure. It was talking cure, of course, but it was also writing cure for all the people who started psychoanalysis. They all wrote, right? And also it became a social cure because we try to be together, we try to process what's happening together. And these three directions, talking, writing, and reprocessing in groups, is the way for us to survive. And this social cure also includes volunteering, also includes all the social justice activities and the tiny things that one can do to maintain our normalcy. I don't know what else to call it. Normalcy, yeah. The sense of the world that will not let us down. Yet another thing that I wanted to mention as an update to what I personally have been doing recently is a talk on affect autism. It's a site for parents and families and professionals who work with children and adults on autistic spectrum, with tips on how to survive the state of constant anxiety. And this talk is available. If you're interested, I can give you a link, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Dean Deutsch has a question, has his hand raised. Dean Deutsch is a very good friend of our program, former dean of the graduate school here at Marshall University.
Galina, do you know how many Ukrainian children were taken to Russia? How many were returned? And is there any, what effort is made to deprogram them or deal with their emotional setback from having been uprooted, taken to Russia, and brainwashed there? Can you address that question?
Well, it's very hard for me to address this question because I've seen many different numbers, including 16,000. I don't know what's true. I don't know these children. No one heard from these families. I heard some stories, heard on social media, of families who adopt Russian children. Well, I mean, Russian families who adopt Ukrainian children. We don't know if these kids needed adoption. We don't know what happened to their families. We just know that they're desperately trying to go back to Ukraine. But families come to family therapists, they come to psychologists, then they come to Russian social services in their attempt to, quote unquote, fix those children, do something that they become great family members and wonderful Russian kids. I think we speak here about the misuse of therapy. I don't imagine what my Russian colleagues go through when they have to deal with these cases. What do you do with your own ethical principles? But I wouldn't know how these kids are being returned, whether they're being returned. Actually, right now, I'm dealing with a case where a family was taken out of their occupied territory, and now the only way to do it is to go through Russia, and they're lost. We don't know if they're gonna reemerge ever. That's one of my characters from my diary, and my fear is that I will have to go back and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. My huge fear is that we are going to lose so many more people.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know more about those children and what is being done for them, what kind of trauma they're continuing to face. Thank you.
Yeah, that by all means, it would be great
Thank you.
to get to those children and help them.
Thank you, Dean Deutsch. Thank you, Galina. Thank you for your absolutely heart-wrenching presentation, and we always value your contributions here. I hope people will be watching. We have a couple of guests whom I haven't seen before here. I know some of them. I wonder if they have questions. Please raise your hand electronically or just open your microphone and ask. If someone has a question right now.
And while we're waiting for that, Galina, I just wanted to thank you for your beautiful poem. You've taken a very well-known logic problem, the wolf, the goat, the cabbage, that we're familiar with from a logic perspective, and just showed the insanity of the current circumstances. Absolutely masterfully, beautifully done. And I hope that poem gets a lot of audience. It's a great work of art, and we're very grateful that you shared it with us today on our program.
Thank you so much. And what I want to say, yeah, you remind me what I want to say about this poem is that, yes, the funny part is that indeed, yeah, I had the dream, but the dream was based on working with people who try to move across borders, across countries with their animals too, with their pets. And just earlier today, I had a group and we talked about Ukrainians who are very much concerned with the fate of their pets and their animals. A few weeks ago, I spoke to a volunteer, someone who put together an operation. I think he supervises 200 plus volunteers on the ground that go to the local elderly. They go into hard to reach areas. I don't know how they get there, but they come in, they bring medicine, they bring some food, they help them tidy up, they feed them, and they will come back in 2.5 weeks. And when time comes, when the war zone gets closer, these people need to be removed. And this is an extremely painful process where they curse those who come to help them. They wish all the ill fate on their heads, and they refuse to leave, and they hold on to their animals, they hold on to their lives. And he said that there are situations where they have to euthanize animals. They have to, he said, when we're lucky, we can find a home for a goat or a cow.
It's been a reoccurring theme on our podcast and our weekly show. We've had quite a few guests talk about the impact on household pets, which is a strange thing when we were talking about the suffering of humanity to talk about the impact on animals. And yet it is a reflection of our humanity that we are able to form bonds and care for things like pets. You know, we've had quite a few guests talk about how heart-wrenching it has been to watch people have to abandon animals, and also the efforts to take care of animals that have been abandoned. It's another dimension of the brutality of this war. And so thank you for talking about it.
I don't know if it's a part of the national character, the quote unquote, but also it's the personification of the soul. Okay, animals hold the part of our best parts.
You know, I wonder if it's also somewhat generational, because like the folks who fled during World War II, my parents' generation, I don't know what they had to abandon, what they had to leave. But I do think there's more attention paid to that now, and almost like permission to acknowledge the value of pets. I think there may have been a time where it's like, oh, it's just an animal, leave it, you know, and it was never just an animal. Somebody cried over that animal. It was never easy to leave it. But now we recognize that no, this is a loss. This is a very deep pain. So just thank you. I really appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, World War II animals were more functional. My grandmother was retelling the story of her evacuation over Dnieper, and the horse was a big part of the story. The horse that basically rescued them all, a huge group of kids and the elderly and women, yeah, thanks to that horse. And they arrived to Ryazan with their horse.
You know, it also makes me think, you know, when you've lost so much, when you've lost everything, what you still have your cat. You know, you have your cat, and so it's just a cat, but it's not just a cat. It's all you have left. It's the only love you have left. You've lost so much during the war, and so I could see where someone trying to evacuate, someone saying no, leave the cat. I could see where that would be absolutely devastating. So again, we've seen talk about pets, not work animals, but pets come up again and again in our weekly discussions, and it's something that I think we hadn't anticipated, and it's truly fascinating. It's how often the plight of pets comes up in these programs.
Yeah, I read a beautiful memoir. It was a Chilean memoir of Land and Sea. I'll think of the author. And she said, and that's somebody who ran from Nazi Germany through my home city, through Odessa, it's interesting, to Chile. Er, not, I apologize, not from Germany, from Austria. And she taught her daughter, whatever you value needs to fit your pockets. Whatever you have needs to be in your pocket. So you're always ready to get up and
Wow.
go.
Wow.
And I think that animals hold a part of that soul, whatever you value.
Yeah.
I've seen people who arrived here to New York with their pets from Nikolaev and Kherson districts.
Thank you. Thank you. As we're waiting maybe for more questions, I cannot, of course, miss the chance to ask about Chukovsky, because we have Mucha Tsukatucha and all other wonderful children's stories, which were part of our, well, many generations' survival under Soviet regime. Miraculously, children's poetry flourished through all the tribulations. And of course, we didn't know who Chukovsky was in real life. He was more than real life. He was a real character. But characters like this were coming from Odessa, a very important cultural influence of this city. You're from there, as were my parents. What can you tell our viewers? We all know that Odessa has changed, and it has not been taken, and it became a symbol of resistance. But what about Odessa people themselves? What is the current feeling? What do you know?
Oh, yes, it's so good that you put it in connection with Chukovsky. This book is for sale, by the way. It was a gift to everyone who participated in the project, but we still have some leftover copies for sale. And I heard from Odessa, from one of our volunteers who got few copies, and she wanted to donate a book to a school. And they said, no, we won't take this book. It's the book of the occupier who wrote in the occupier's language. We don't take anything. We don't need those books. We have our own, or we will develop our own. And this is a current trend, this pushback against Russian language as a symbol of the invasion, the cultural appropriation. And actually, if all goes well, I will participate in the conference in the University of Albany in February, and we will talk about just that, the living through languages and how to decolonize the language, basically, and how to free Ukrainian from Russian, and hopefully to bring people back to the Russian culture that also does not belong to Putin. At least it shouldn't belong to Putin. It's not Putin's to give us back bits and pieces, or to withhold, or to make us hate the culture because of Putin and Putin's regime. This is, I think, an important topic. But also recently, I was able to interview two poets from Odessa, Maria Galina and Arkady Shtipel. The interview will come out on the anti-war portal Точка Зрения. I'm sure you know about that. And they talk about Odessa now, and Odessa is definitely Ukraine. Odessa feels free and feels privileged to be Ukraine, and to be brave, and to be robust, and to push back. And that's the general kind of attitude. Odessa Literature Museum, that was actually that place where the culture was preserved, underwent some damage this past summer, because of the Russian shelling of the port. They aimed at the port, but what suffered first, and I think that it was symbolic, it was this museum, the Museum of Literature, Литературный музей, and the second, then the Palace of Science, Dom Ученых, also suffered. That was the former house of one of Tolstoy family. It's an extended family, not directly related to Leo Tolstoy, but somebody from that aristocratic family. And the third place was the art museum that got damaged just recently, in December, I believe. And I think it's symbolic because Russians, contemporary people who call themselves Russians, we don't know who they are, but somehow they appropriated the word, the name. They do whatever it takes to destroy the Russian presence in the south of Ukraine, which is, I think, is sad and painful.
Thank you. We know you have to go soon, and we have time for a couple of more questions, please, or comments from panel or the audience. I hold my discussion of Russian culture and for the later episodes, and we would love to invite you to convey your conference ideas after you do the Albany talk, and we can discuss it. We can invite a couple of people. It's very painful and very endless story right now, and maybe not the most important at this point.
But I think it's a constructive discussion. It will get us somewhere. We are the people who also build some sort of a cultural and linguistic reality now.
Yes.
But yeah, in 7 minutes, actually, Friday is my volunteer day, so it's my Ukraine day. So yeah.
Okay, then if I do not see any more questions right now, we will ask Dr. Shrey to give our greetings to our Ukrainian viewers, and we all thank Galina Itskovich for being with us today. It's our privilege to hear from people like this who combine all the most important points and values which we all need to hear right now as the war goes on. Thank you.
Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках і молитвах. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня. Прощаємося.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Героям слава!